was a pretty good fit for the PLOTS program. So I'll cover a little bit about the PLOTS program and different options we have, as well as other things you can do on your land to enhance the wildlife stuff. So what is PLOTS? The mission of the North Dakota Game and Fish is to protect, conserve, and enhance fish and wildlife populations for sustained consumptive and non-consumptive use. And since North Dakota is mostly privately owned, the Private Lands Initiative was created to put this mission out onto the private landscape. Private land open to sportsmen, or the PLOTS, is just a component of the Private Land Initiative. So PLOTS, it's an agreement between the North Dakota Game and Fish and the private landowner that allows public walk-in hunting access. And PLOTS, it's typically funded, or it is completely funded by $100 and $3, which is the Pittman-Robertson Act, which is a federal excise tax on ammunition, guns, other hunting supplies that goes into a big pot and it gets divvied out to the states by how many licenses they sell. So which North Dakota, we're kind of lower on the end of the license sales, so we get some, but it's not as much as other states. So PLOTS programs, we have, depending on where you're at in the state, we have a number of different programs. There's quite a few of them, but there's 3 or 4 that we really kind of focus on throughout the states, and that's our habitat plot, our working lands, our CRP program, and also our CREP program, which is kind of a newer one. But our habitat plots, it's a multi-year rental private land that has some sort of wildlife cover or habitat on it. And this is more or less the department renting your land, paying a rental rate to keep the wildlife habitat out there. So it can be existing habitat such as cattail sloughs, native prairie that isn't being utilized, or tree rows. That's just land that's being pretty much idled. And we can also do, well, for the existing habitat, the payment is 13 to 21 bucks an acre. So we can also do grass establishments, which you're taking cropland and planting it back to habitat, and that pays a lot more. It pays the county average, which Burleigh County I think is $46 an acre right now. And with that, you also get cost share of up to about 97 bucks an acre for the grass seed, to put the grass in, and the preparation. And the length of those are 6 to 10 years. If you do a 10-year one, you get an extra $30 an acre or one-time payment bump. And once the grass is established, a third of it can be hay or grazed annually for management stuff. And you don't get a reduction in payment on that. So. Our working lands program, that's kind of our jack of all trades. It kind of fits most every operation. It provides a payment as well as just an access payment. So it's a lot of times it's a smaller payment, but it's just providing access, and the payment is based off of the practices you have on your farm and ranch currently. So they really vary. We got payment rates for like cropland, it's about $1 an acre, and rangeland it's a couple, 2 to 4. And we can also do the existing habitat rate on that too, which would be the 13 to 21. So you can receive higher payments and cost share if you're looking at putting in improvements such as a tree planting or cover crops or grass planting. So these are typically 2 to 4 year agreements. So the working land stuff, the cover crops, that's an option through there as one of the enhancements. We have a couple different options you can see here. So the first one is, say, a full season cover crop. You put it in mid to end of May and you let it sit all year long until the March of the following year. So for that, you'll get a soil rental rate of the county average, plus you'll get the cover crop seed given to you. We can sit down and put together a mix, and we'll buy the seed and bring it out to you. And the other option is a midsummer one or post-harvest one. And that has to be planted by mid-August, and you get 15 bucks an acre plus the seed on that. So we did that one. It kind of ties in well with some of the equip stuff on the post-harvest cover crops. So I think they pay for a little bit of the seed, and then we'll pay for the other half of it. We can also do food plots, and these we try to keep down to about 10 acres, so guys don't come in and tell us they planted a 160 acre food plot. So we don't necessarily need that, but the landowner will get $70 for establishment as well as the county average soil rental. And in certain cases, we can partner with like Pheasants Forever, and we can get corn seed and that kind of stuff. Pretty cheap, if not free, so we can provide seed for that also sometimes. And in our working lands, we can also do grass plantings. A lot of these are smaller plantings compared to our habitat plots, and they'll kind of square off areas or low areas that aren't worth farming, not profitable. We can plant them to grass, and those will get up to 100% cost share and a soil rental. So if it's somewhere that drowns out every year and you're not getting a crop off it, we can plant it to grass and pay you the soil rental on that. And once the grass is established, you can use a third of it per year too. So we can also do tree plantings through this. We'll provide cost share. We don't have a standalone tree planting program. We typically piggyback on some other one, like the SCD I know has an OHF grant out right now where they'll pay 60% of trees and fabric, and we can come in and pay the other 40, so you can pretty much get them for free. And we need a minimum length of 10 years on those just because they are trees and they're a little bit slower. We also have our CRP access program, which with the farm bill where it's at right now is really not a big hitter. So there is CRP out there. We pay establishment cost share on that, up to 100% cost share, and an access payment of $6 to $10 an acre depending on where you're at in the state. So that can be lucrative if that's something you're interested in. We also have the CREP program. This is a newer program that just got rolled out this past year. So it's a branch of CRP, but it's a conservation reserve enhancement program, and the enhancement part is higher incentives, higher payments, but it's kind of focused on smaller acres. So this one's focused on riparian areas, and you can see in the green area is the areas that they're focusing on. So that's streams and waterways in the green area there. And the goal is to get 2,000 acres of cropland planted to grass and run through the CRP program. So it's a water quality program as well as kind of a hunting program, because the incentives have to come from a state agency and they're coming from the Game and Fish, so that has to go into PLOTS also. And with this, you can plant cropland back to grass, filter strips, riparian buffers, and you can do pollinator stuff. And FSA will they'll pay a rental rate plus 10 to 40% depending on the practice. They'll do cost share of 50% and a sign-up incentive of $75 to $150 depending on the practice. And we'll come in and we'll pay a sign-up incentive of $100 an acre, another 50% on the cost share to install the practice, so you get that paid for, and an annual payment for the land that's enrolled in plots. And there's other funding for conservation out there too. I know a lot of these other agencies I'm going to talk about are here today, but the SCD with the tree planting, I mentioned that they'll do 60, the trees and fabric, and we can come in and do the other 40. The EQIP and CSP, they're kind of, I guess the ones that are out there are going, but the farm bill's kind of knows where that's going to go. But we can also put money on top of that. And the WGP, I see some of the guys that run that are here today, and they can help install grazing systems on expiring CRP. And the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Partners for Fish and Wildlife, they do a lot of grassland restorations, wetland restorations, they do water development, fencing, they can do a number of different things. And most of these, they don't require public access like the PLOTS program does. So if you're willing to do public access, we can come in and we can put money on top of those too. There's 8 of us throughout the state, and pretty much if we're going to put money at it, we require public hunting access. So that's the one thing with plots some people aren't a big fan of, but if you just want to increase your land, wildlife habitat and that kind of thing, give us a call and we can come out and visit with you and tell you thoughts and stuff, and we'll provide technical assistance. We don't necessarily have to open everything up for hunting. So, and that's about all I got. So, who's one to take questions?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I know I've worked some with Levi in the PLOTS program, and it's been a good program. You know, you get to you get a little payment, and then you open it up for access for hunting and non-hunters also. But you know, one of the things that I've noticed, I've met some really interesting people through the the hunters and the people that came to watch wildlife. It's people that I wouldn't have met otherwise. So it's there are some benefits to that. It's not just financial and hunting. So with that, I will open up to questions if anybody has any questions. Yes, please.
Louis, thanks for the presentation. It was quite enjoyable. As far as your personal experience, what is your, I guess, favorite thing or the observation that you enjoyed the most as you added practices to your farms from a wildlife perspective?
You know, the increased numbers that you see in nature from like when I was young, the change that I've seen, it's a lot. You know, like in my program I mentioned how we used to summer fowl and we, fall till, and there just wasn't any place for those wildlife to be. They can't live on black ground. And that part, and seeing it's just it's a good feeling, I guess. To see more wildlife. It means that the wildlife are there because they want to be, and they like your place better than someplace else, and that's where they want to be. I don't know if that really answered your question.
Sure.
But that's my thought on it. Yes, please.
So Louis, you were saying you were doing summer fallowing. Were you also doing season-long grazing?
We were, yes.
And what was the greatest hurdle in your mind that made you go to rotational grazing and not doing summer fallowing?
Well, it's a long progression. We're looking probably 40 years that we went over, but we've been no-till farming for probably 20 years, and the grazing probably about that long too. And it doesn't happen overnight, but the change you can see is pretty fast. Especially on the wildlife side. There's some things like I know I grow some winter wheat, and winter wheat plant. Any crop that's planted in the fall. Obviously, you're not out there in the spring to till it up. You don't run over nests. You don't destroy them. They have that nesting period free. Other than you might run in your farm, you might run a sprayer track down or something. But other than that, it's a more natural state for them to live in. And I don't know if that answered your question, but that's what we try to do, is to do some of these practices. I guess one of the things that I like to think about is if I can do a practice that costs me almost nothing in dollars going out, but yet I can see a greater financial return to my operation, along with improving my soil, my wildlife population, the environment overall, it's just a winning situation. And I just another thought I had. This is a prediction, and we'll see in 10 or 20 years if this is really comes to be. But when you have like cropland, you probably have all seen it. When a piece of cropland comes up for sale, they'll have a productivity index with it, which means it's basically based off the soil type, and it goes a scale up to like 100. 100 would be the best soil probably in your county. So my prediction is that in the future you're probably going to see another way of doing that that's going to have organic matter as one of the pieces of value to those property, and the same for rangeland too. And as you have, because when you have increased soil organic matter, even a poor farmer like myself is going to grow a better crop and have better grass on your rangeland. So it's a win situation. If you can build your soil organic matter, and it goes with wildlife too, because it's all part of the whole system. So in 10-20 years we'll see if that comes true, but I think there'll be some type of a scale that'll include organic matter in the value of rangeland or cropland, either one. So, yeah. Any other questions?
Do you keep cows on that western
Yes.
ranch
Yes.
year-round?
Yes, we do. We didn't originally intend to, we intended to just graze it and bring those cattle home, but we found that topography out there with, around the farms, there's a farmstead out there that was operation, and it's got really good drainage, and it's so much easier. We calve out in the open, and it's so much easier to calve there than bring them back here. Burley County, it's a very good county, but some of our land is clay soils, and when you have wet springs, it's a nightmare to anything that you try to do with your cattle when you're calving. And when you want to calve in the open, it's you know, that's not one of the fun days when you have to go out and drag a muddy calf in, and with a mean cow that's not happy either. So yes.
When do you usually calve?
We start late April, and we don't, in a perfect world, we'd like to move it back, but it seems if you go too far, then we have trouble with our conception rates. Anything else, Levi? You got anything? I've worked with Levi on several projects. I've been in PLOTS for 10 years or more.
Ever since I've been around, yeah.
So it's you know, if you're not in it and you've got anything that you're interested in putting it, I think it's a good project. You know, and I think it really helps with the public image of farmers and ranchers, where you open your land up to hunters and non-hunters alike, and they can see the improvements you've made, and you know, it's something that should make you feel good. Yes.
Are the acres and lots up for longer?
They're up slightly from last year. I think we're at about 760,000 compared to we were about 740 last year. So they're up, but that's spread across the state. So I mean, you're not going to notice a huge bump in one area, but yeah, we're up slightly. So, and a lot of it is with the CRP declining. We used to have a lot of CRP in the program, but just there's not much CRP out there. So a lot of it is the working lands and habitat type stuff. So.
And I think our time's about up, and was there another question? Go ahead.
Quick question, just prompted a question there with that last exchange. Maybe mostly for game and fish, is there a regional strategy for acres to sort of integrate with producers, you know, dealing with wildlife? I recognize it's a willing participant program, but is there something in the background Game and Fish has to, you know, sort of strategically kind of orient goals and objectives regionally throughout the state, with one of those outcomes obviously being wildlife, and, you know, working with producers to help share, you know, match and meet those goals?
You know, it's funny you ask that, because we just this fall we started in our private land section, started goals and like target areas where we want to increase habitat and increase access, kind of based on population. So I mean, we're getting the ball rolling on that. It's not up and running completely yet, but yeah, it's definitely something we're going to look at with the decreased habitat across the state and that kind of thing. We're going to have to, otherwise just taking the lowest hanging fruit. I don't know where we'll be.
Well, what made me think about is a wildlife action plan. So
Yeah.
Here's the swap, and, you know, bringing that, layering that into the equation.
And that is, if you follow the wildlife action plan, that's exactly how we got that boundary off of
Yeah, I
that.
wondered if that's what
Yep.
it was.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'd like to close. I'd like to thank you all for coming, and special thanks to you, Levi, for coming.